Hi, my name is Ragnhild Dybdahl, and welcome to Module 7 on social and cultural sensitivity in research ethics. The learning outcomes for this module are that you should gain more knowledge on how to respect diverse cultural perspectives, be able to address and critically examine social and cultural implications of research. You should be aware of debates and dilemmas that are ongoing regarding the universality view of research ethics, and also be able to discuss contextual factors associated with all aspects of research ethics. My background is in psychology and a little bit in cultural anthropology, and many of my examples are based on work, research on human rights and mental health and psychosocial support in emergencies. The basic principles that you've already become quite familiar with involve doing no harm, but also to do good, minimize harm and maximize good, and also basic principles of justice, fairness, dignity, and autonomy. And all of these are related also to the cultural and social context in which the research take place. When it comes to do no harm, there is a lack of contextual understanding often of what it means to do harm or no harm. And having a lack of social and cultural understanding and considerations is one of those ways that we can do harm. For example, by carrying out interventions that are inappropriate, by using terms that are inappropriate, by doing research that does not respect social norms. The article I refer to here by Mike Wessel's Do No Harm shows that contextually appropriate psychosocial support is crucial, and that many examples of harm stem from the lack of social and cultural considerations. Contextual considerations are important in all areas of research ethics. I have based some of my recommendations on the Interagency Standing Committee recommendations for conducting ethical mental health and psychosocial research in emergency settings. Now, these considerations do not only refer to mental health and psychosocial support, and not only to emergency settings, but to research in various contexts. And no matter which of these we're talking about, considerations of cultural and social settings and contexts are important. This goes for why we do the study, what is the purpose of the study, and what is the research question. This has to do also with the context in which it takes place. We always have to assess the risks and the benefits, and again, the different roles, the different understandings and norms that we will encounter have to be taken into consideration. Research involves many aspects, including the participants, the methods, the safety, neutrality, the design, and all of these have contextual aspects. One issue that you should be aware of is the discussion on whether universal research ethics is valid. Because many of the ethical guidelines stem from the same sources, they tend to be seen as universal. On the other hand, there is a lot of criticism on this as well, because they are seen as stemming from often a individual-oriented setting. Some have, at least earlier, argued for a more relativistic way of looking at all norms and also research ethics. However, in this article that I've also shared with you in the manual and the guidance before, the authors argue for situated ethics, which means more of a approach where you have a more hybrid version, where you see that we're not arguing for a relativism as such, but as a contextual and situated and localized understanding and adaptation of methods and concepts and dissemination, which is more of a situated approach. This approach really upholds diversity, showing that there are many ways of understanding our lives, understanding the community. And this diversity is central to understanding social and cultural considerations. All of these aspects also need to go into the ethics education and training, so that we learn together to critically examine the concepts that are used, the methods that are used, and whether they are respectful, whether they do convey issues that are of importance to the people in question, whether they are understood, whether they are shared. And ethics education and training is part of research ethics overall. This is a very powerful quote, I find. This has to do with not only with do no harm, but to do with respect of people. And it shows clearly the cultural and social context. It is from a book called Global Mental Health: Ethical Principles and Practice, edited by Dyer. And the quote goes as follows. We had a lot of trouble with Western mental health workers who came here immediately after the genocide, and we had to ask some of them to leave. They came, and their practice did not involve being outside in the sun where you begin to feel better. There was no music or drumming to get your blood flowing again. There was no sense that everyone had taken the day off so that the entire community could come back together to try to lift you up and bring you back to joy. There was no acknowledgement of the depression as something invasive and external that could actually be cast out again. Instead, they would take people one at a time into these dingy little rooms and have them sit around for an hour or so and talk about bad things that happened to them. We had to ask them to leave. Now, this was a statement by a Rwandan informant to the writer, and it's very powerful, I find, because it shows another way of looking at trauma, looking at hardship, and also another way from the Westerners who came here, as they explained, when it comes to what would work. It shows being outside in the sun. It shows the music or drumming, being together, taking the day off. And all of these convey beautifully the cultural and social aspects that have to be taken seriously. If we were to do research on these practices, we would have had to actually listen. So if dignity is to have any meaning at all, it really must honor the perspective of those affected. One of the guidelines that we have is the Trust Code, which is a global code of conduct for equitable research partnerships. recommend this strongly because it also takes the social and cultural contexts seriously. And it builds on the same principles, but in a language that should be clear and understandable to the community. Has to do with fairness, with respect, with care and honesty. Here's another example that actually was launched in 2017, which was before the Trust Code. And this is called the SAN Code. And it was the first time that an indigenous group in Africa launched their own ethics code. The SAN Code of Research Ethics, I recommend that you look up. It builds on the same basic values on respect, honesty, justice, fairness, care, and also on the process of doing research. And it goes into detail on what do we mean by these basic principles of research ethics. There's a booklet here that you can download on the SAN Code of which also goes into justice and fairness in research. That it underlines that the community is meaningfully involved in the studies from the beginning, from the very beginning, and has to involve a fair and open explanation of the benefits that the participants in the community might expect. And also the ownership with the transparency that is needed. Here again, there's another part from the booklet which I recommend to have a look at. One more example I wanted to share with you is about the importance of gaining understanding of cultural and social settings in which we are going to work. Even if it's in our own country, learning about the culture and the norms, it will be important because even within our own country, there are a multitude, many different types of ways of understanding society and of a language. So I'll just give you a few examples here that have been made before doing interventions, when of course interventions are usually followed by evaluations and research. So these background notes are very important. For example, this one called The Culture, Context and Mental Health of Somali Refugees, which gives staff and also researchers a background. Naturally, if we are to do research, we need to work with people who understand the context. We need to work with our colleagues who are part of the community. We need to work with the community as well. Here are just a few keywords to sum up for your consideration. Consider ethical merit of any research project, both from the contextual side, from the local side, which is from the inside, and from a technical scientific perspective, for example, the design and the method. A good research project will have both. You should show how explanation and justification of the topic and the methods have been adapted to the local context. The terms you use, the language you use, should be critically examined, not only by the ethics committee, but also by the community. Are we sure that these are respectful terms, and also that they are that we understand what they mean? For example, childhood may not mean the same in every setting. In your research, you should show how contextual norms have been addressed. When it comes to informed consent, these should be contextually appropriate, while at the same time maintaining ethical standards. This is a very complicated issue, and one that you will encounter many times throughout this course. But informed consent is not just about filling in a form, it's about the actual understanding and transparency, which also includes taking cultural considerations very seriously. For example, one example is in settings where people have a norm that hospitality, treating strangers very well, that where those are strong, it may be a tendency to agree, to be friendly, which could be misunderstood as informed consent. So this needs to be checked carefully. There are a number of issues to consider, but a few of them include the focus on individuals versus communities. So when it comes to informed consent, is it just the person? Is it the parent? Is it the community elder? Is it the head of the family? And again, this balance from a contextual perspective on one side and the technical and scientific and universal view on the other to be balanced. There's also gender issues, religion, traditions, age. What age? How should people be treated according to their age? And historical issues, and also what topics are sensitive, what should be treated carefully, and stigma, and to make sure that the participation in a research project does not lead to further stigma. I have a number of references for you to consider if you're interested, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting you soon. Thank you.